Hi, and welcome to Think Tank number 5. Today we're going to be talking about bridging the gap between sellers and buyers. It's a two-part series, and I'd like to welcome Andrew Coulson with me.
G'day mate, how are you?
I'm very well. Andrew, you're well?
Good, very, very well. Looking forward to today's session.
I am too, actually. I think what we can talk about first off is the market.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of the vendors at the moment still have their opinions on value back 3 months ago, and they're referring to older sales. Their opinions of value are a little bit different to where we're seeing the buyers at the moment, and we've got this gap in between them.
We're starting to see that gap happen, aren't we?
It is. And so what we want to do is try and identify some of the things that we might be able to do to minimise that gap.
See, the past market, we didn't have that problem.
No.
The buyers were going over what the owners wanted. In this market, the buyers are really trying to look for more bargains, feel that they should be able to do so. And so this gap is happening. Now, this hasn't happened for probably 3 or 4 years, maybe even up to 5. So these are techniques that we need to relearn and bring back in. So I think the first technique we want to talk about is set the sale meeting. How does that work, Andrew?
Well, obviously you've won the listing. We're now at a situation where you've got their trust. They're on an emotional high. They're really in a good place at the moment. What we don't want to do is head back to the office, start doing any ads or admin and those sorts of things, and we just continue to communicate with them and build that trust and keep going from there. We've got them up to a stage where they're very happy. What we don't want to see is we lose communication and they start sliding down instead of kicking on to a better place.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. We're in a high trust position. We're going to take that opportunity to have a set to sale meeting so we get the vendor to understand everything that could go on in the next few weeks in that sale. So we're going to talk about the agenda and what we talk about in the set to sale meeting. What would be the first?
I think probably communication with the vendors is critical to the whole program. So we're going to have to set up how we're going to communicate, how regularly we're going to communicate, what forms are we going to use, or what media samples are we going to use to communicate, all those sorts of things so that we know exactly what's going to be going on.
Every vendor is different. Look, sometimes we tend to put them on a conveyor belt and we just do what we think they should have. At this meeting, we're going to ask what they expect.
I had you might say, a little bit of a difficult vendor. They wanted to be contacted at least every day, if not twice a day. And if
I can agree with that.
If he rang before I rang him, then he won. Yep. And I wasn't being seen as doing my job. So
I didn't feel you were proactive if you weren't doing that. So and so this communication is what it's all about. You see, if you lose a listing, or if an agent loses a listing, another agent walks in, the first thing the vendor talks about is that they didn't talk to me. They weren't talking to me. They weren't doing anything with me. They weren't showing properties. They weren't doing anything. So this communication is the number one thing to get right. So
where are we going to conduct our meetings?
Well, the first thing is with the communication. How often we should have a standard that we're comfortable with. Now, and this is where it can get a little bit difficult. Sometimes you don't like to commit because you may get really busy, but you need to commit and do it. That's all the difference. That makes the difference right through. So I would think a minimum of 3 phone calls a week, a minimum.
There's no excuse why you shouldn't be contacting them after you're open for inspection. Absolutely. Or any inspection on the property. They need to be contacted as soon as possible. You'll need to be in touch with them after you've communicated with all your buyers to let them know the feedback. And then when you're doing a written report and you submit that to them, then there's another opportunity to sit down, go through the feedback, go through the response, and go through that process.
Yeah, so with this report, it's an interesting concept. We're thinking at this set the sale meeting, you try and get them to come to your office to talk about the report you've done for that week. Getting them out of their comfort zone into your comfort zone. It can't always happen, but it is important if you can do that. Plus, it's great for time management. You can see 3 vendors in a row rather than driving from 3 properties in a row. It's great time management. What do you think? Yeah,
it's at their home. It's their palace. They're emotional. They're wanting to show it off, and they're keeping their emotional state. When we get them into our office, we're trying to get them to see that this is a business transaction.
Absolutely.
They're seeing the other people working within the office. They recognise that it is a business transaction.
Absolutely. I think that's the major point here. It's a business transaction. And sometimes they don't see that. So once we get the communication right, then we can start talking about the advertising.
So obviously we would have discussed fees, advertising, a few things at your listing presentation. What we want to do now is to go through a few other features. We want to get them involved in perhaps writing some of the ads, putting some of the information there, and we do this by maybe getting them to prepare a fact sheet.
Yeah, fact sheet. I'd rather that, not so much writing the ads.
No.
But the fact sheet.
Get them to write out all the different things that they've enjoyed about the property, so they can try and transfer that emotion to somebody else.
Yeah.
Little things that aren't always going to be included in the advertising. We want to build that into your fact sheet.
Love fact sheets. Matter of fact, a lady who's now retired, she had a fact sheet for the owners, for the buyers when they came to the open for inspection, but she also had a fact sheet for the children. So when the children came to the open for inspection, she had a fact sheet, and the children's fact sheet was fantastic. It had the best place to hide when you play hide and seek, the best way to have the cricket pitch when you wanted to play cricket in the summer. It had the best parks to go to. It had where you could buy the best ice cream in the area. That little fact sheet just won people over. It made us stand out from the other agents, actually.
Yeah, and it's good just to set the dates in your calendars, go through that sort of thing. All this is being wrapped up within the advertising and confirming where you are as far as that goes.
Yeah, the other thing with the advertising is that when you're at the listing presentation, they were picking you on maybe fees and everything else. This is the time when you can go over about should they spend any more on advertising. Again, high trust level, time to ask that question. Are you comfortable with it? Should you spend any more?
Yeah.
You'd be surprised what can happen.
Yep.
After the advertising,
we want to talk about inspections. What inspections are going to be best? Are we going to be doing open house, private inspections? How to prepare the property? Do we need to get a stylist involved in that regard? What they can do as far as assisting with inspections, being out of the property, how to prepare it, those sorts of things.
So at the presentation you may have talked about inspections, but this is going deeper, and showing that you care. You might even talk to them about, at times if it's raining and we're having open for inspection, what would you like us to do? Shoes off, shoes on. Now you may not see that as a big thing, but as an owner with a great deal of pride in their property, they will think you are on their side and looking after their property for them.
Exactly. It's just planning the whole process. We take it for granted because we're doing it all the time and we know exactly what's going to happen. But to get them at that same place of knowledge, to understand they're not asking any questions, they're not doubting what we're doing, we've got their full support.
And at the same time, you mentioned presenting of the home. You can give them little tips as well. If you're doing a private inspection, and some mornings you can be rushing out of the home, so you might just say, if you've got plates in the sink, get them out of the sink and put them in the fridge. No one opens the fridge doors, so the kitchen can look spotless. The fridge mightn't, but then when you come home, you can do the plates if you need to.
Yeah.
So there's little tips you can give them at the same time.
Yeah, just little things to make it less stressful for them.
Okay, so now we've gone through, I would say, important things to the vendor. Now we go through really some important things for us as the agent, and that would be offers, handling offers, what do they want you to do with them, never reject an offer. Yeah,
I think, you hear a story of them, a vendor sending through a friend or something to find out what you're quoting or what you're doing at the open for inspection. Transparency is beautiful here, that we set up, this is the dialogue we're going to use, this is the process that we're going to go through, and then what do you want to do as far as framing our offers? They've got an opportunity of giving us instructions in writing, what we're going to do.
Let's do private treaty and let's do auction.
Okay,
so let's talk about offers for private treaty.
Yep. So
how would they want them?
Most agents are asking the buyers to put their offers in writing.
Yep.
Now, we've got to get written instructions from our owners as to what sort of form we want the offers to be. It could be in an email. It might be on a signed contract. Those are the best things, because we still want to get that commitment and show that the buyers are genuine. We want to find out that information. So, again.
And that we've shown we've qualified the buyers as well. What about auction? Offers with auctions, that's an interesting one.
Well, it is an interesting one. We know that some organisations like Public Trustee and Garden, mortgages, got there, mortgages, they often give instructions not to sell before the auction. So We may have vendors' instructions that go along those lines. Yep. Otherwise, they may instruct us that we'll just consider an offer if it is on a signed contract with a 66W and a cheque.
More importantly, explain to them that you don't reject offers. We just invite them to the auction. We don't reject offers. We don't have to. If someone makes a verbal offer or an offer on an email and you can't qualify, you don't reject. Say, look, thank you, but the owner said we'd like to invite you to the auction.
It's a matter of we want to gather that information. We want the feedback. We want to keep that information going, but we want to also be able to maintain control.
Get your owner to understand how the offer process works and how it's going to work for them and how you're going to work for them around the offer process. It's really important. So once we get that down, Pat, what do you think the next one should be?
Well, at this time we're also discussing around offers. What sort of things are they going to build into their contract?
Have they ordered one yet?
What sort of things do they need to include, such as settlement times? We know that buyers are going to ask you a range of questions, but there's going to be a lot around, will they take a 5% deposit?
Absolutely.
Is the settlement time flexible? What are the inclusions? What are the exclusions? So it'd be a good opportunity to determine these at your set to sell meetings, so you're already educated when the question comes in.
Absolutely, indeed. That 5% deposit. We can't give them legal advice, but what we can do is say, if you are going to accept 5% deposits, we're going to need another clause in the contract. So you need to mention that to your solicitor. And so let's get this out on the table right at the start.
Yeah, it's a matter of working out what suits them, what's their motivation, what's going to help them and assist them to get the very best possible deal we can.
Look, there's a lot more we can talk about, but let's jump to some of the things like the unforeseen things that can happen. And this is a really important part of the agenda. What sort of unforeseen things that could happen?
Well, all of a sudden you've won the listing and there may be other agents that haven't won the listing. And
we're a competitive industry.
It is a competitive industry, and all of a sudden they might go and visit your vendor. It might be personally, it might be on the phone. They're going to get a phone call to say, hey, I've got a buyer, can I help you? All those sorts of things. It may be just somebody knocking on the front door saying that they're interested in purchasing. I remember one case, I was selling my own property. I had somebody knock on the front door. The signboard.
You had a fool for a client, did you?
I had a fool for a client. I had the signboard out the front, and somebody said, "Oh, it's just the agent sent me down to have a look at the property." And clearly, I said, "Well, that's interesting. I'm the agent." So that wasn't the case. So there's a number of things that could happen.
I want to go back to the other one about having lots of friends from the owner. So if other agents ring and they say I've got a buyer, they'll say you're the other agent, and they've rung, and then I'm the agent looking after the property. They ring me and say, look, Andrew's rung and he said he's got a buyer. Do you want to have a chat to him? Yeah, I'll talk to him. And if Andrew never brings a buyer down to that property, they think I've stopped that. So more importantly, what you should say to them at this set to sale meeting, another agent has a buyer, tell them to come on down. I'll share my commission with them. And then the other agent, he's only got two choices, either to bring the buyer down or he's going to ask the question, how much commission? Yeah. And he looks like a greedy agent. So it's called slaying the dragon. You can slay the dragon if you set this up early.
It's not a matter of you saying, no, I don't want to invite those people in, or he's just telling lies. You're actually inviting them. Maybe for an offer of 20%, who knows, they might not come through, but the fact that you're being perceived as the good person and assisting them in getting their sale, that's what we want to be seen as doing.
People knocking on doors?
People knocking on doors. Have your fact sheet ready. Have your business cards ready.
For the vendor. If the vendor's home, a buyer knocks on the door, what are you going to suggest that they do?
Hand over the business card and the fact sheet and say, they're our selected agent, we'd request you get in touch. Absolutely. As long as you pre-form that idea with the vendors, if it happens, they're planned, they're organised, they know exactly what to do.
I agree. In this world, safety is important. We've got to screen the buyers, and they're paying us to do that. So leave that to us. Send them to us, and we'll look after them. What about if they take them through? What about, more importantly, the vendor and price? Yeah,
it's important at this stage that our vendor keeps their opinions on price to themselves. Quite often they're down at the shopping centre, they see a friend, the friend asks them, oh, what are your expectations? The vendor shares that information, then that friend shares it with somebody else, and before you know it, the Chinese whispers have gone through the ranks, and it's a completely different number that was first mentioned.
Let's not talk
or
price.
if it's an auction property, we don't want them discussing the price out there. So we give them instructions on what we're going to be saying, why we're saying it, and we appreciate them deflecting or referring any inquiries back to us as far as that goes.
If you finish this meeting, the owner should feel very comfortable with what's going to happen right through the sale and increase that trust level that we talked about right from the start. Now, if you want to see a role play of this meeting, set the sale meeting, we've got that on our website, and it's when you want to do your sales CPD points. So if you haven't done your CPD points this year, get on there and do your CPD, look at the videos. The set the sale meeting is a role play that you can watch. Remember, this is a two-part series. We're going to be back in a fortnight's time to give you the other two meetings that we want to talk to you about to try and breach and that gap area.
Yeah, so we'll discuss your buyers meetings, your on-track meetings. I'm looking forward to getting together again in 2 weeks.
Hope this has helped you. Thank you for joining us tonight.
See you then.